The orbital station called Celestium Prime floated in the darkness of space like a massive silver wheel. Inside its metal corridors, representatives from 47 different alien species walked, talked, and made decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. Among them, trying his best to look like he belonged, was Taman Han. Taman was human, but nobody on the station knew his real purpose for being there. To everyone else, he was just another low-level worker in the diplomatic archives. He filed documents, organized data files, and stayed quiet. That was exactly what he wanted them to think. The truth was very different. Taman was a spy sent by United Earth Intelligence. His mission was simple to explain, but dangerous to complete. Find out why human colony ships kept disappearing in the outer regions of space. Every few months, another ship full of families heading to new worlds would vanish without a trace. Earth asked the Galactic Council for help, but the aliens always said the same thing. Space was dangerous. Ships got lost. These things happened, but Earth suspected something worse was going on. That was why Taman was here, wearing a fake identity and pretending to be someone he was not. He had been on the station for 8 months now, 8 long months of careful movements and quiet observations. His neural implant hidden inside his brain helped him understand alien languages and think like they did. It made the disguise perfect. No one suspected the quiet human clerk in Section 12. Today, Taman walked through the archive halls like he did every day. The lights were dim here and the air smelled like old metal and recycled oxygen. Most workers avoided this section because it was boring. That made it perfect for what Taman needed to do. He sat down at his workstation and activated the terminal. His fingers moved across the holographic keyboard, pulling up files about shipping routes and colony movements. On the surface, everything looked normal. But Taman had learned to look deeper. He entered a security code he had stolen 3 weeks ago from a careless Vrithan administrator. The screen flickered and new files appeared. These were restricted documents, things that regular workers should never see. Taman's heart beat faster, but his face stayed calm. He had trained for years to control his reactions. The files were communications between senior council members. Taman read through them quickly, his implant translating the alien text into words he could understand. What he found made his blood run cold. There were messages between 3 high-ranking officials. They talked about the human problem and acceptable losses. They mentioned coordinates that matched exactly where human colony ships had disappeared. They discussed profits and distribution percentages. Taman copied everything onto a secure data chip hidden in his sleeve. This was the evidence Earth needed, but it was not enough yet. He needed more proof, more details about who was involved and why they were doing this. A sound made him freeze. Footsteps in the corridor outside. Taman quickly closed the restricted files and pulled up a boring maintenance report instead. He forced himself to breathe normally as the door opened. Ambassador Jiwon Choi walked in, accompanied by 2 Kelmorian guards. Jiwon was the official human representative to the council, a dignified woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She did not know about Taman's real mission. Nobody on Earth could risk telling her, just in case she was being watched or listened to. Taman, Jiwon said with a small smile. Working late again? Just finishing some filing, Ambassador, Taman replied, keeping his voice pleasant and bored. You know how it is. Always more paperwork, Jiwon nodded. Indeed, well, do not stay too long. Even archivists need rest. She collected a data pad from a shelf and left with her guards. Taman waited 5 full minutes before moving again. His hands were shaking slightly now. That had been too close. He needed to be more careful. Over the next 3 days, Taman gathered more information. He found shipping manifests that did not match official records. He discovered financial transfers between council accounts and private corporations. He located encrypted messages that his implant could barely translate, but the meaning was clear enough. Something very wrong was happening, and it involved humans. On the 4th night, Taman made his way to the lower decks of the station. This was where cargo ships docked and where less legal activities happened. The council security did not patrol here as often. It was the perfect place. For a dead drop, he had arranged to pass his data, chip to a courier who would smuggle it off the station and get it back to Earth. The courier was supposed to meet him near docking bay 17 at midnight station time. Taman walked through the shadows, keeping close to the walls. The lower deck smelled different from the upper levels. Here the air was thick with engine oil and alien spices from a dozen different worlds. Strange music played from somewhere far away, and voices argued in languages Taman did not recognize. He reached the meeting point and waited. Minutes passed slowly. Taman's training kept him calm, but inside his mind raced. If the courier did not show up, he would have to find another way to get the information home. A figure appeared from around a corner. It was a human, which immediately seemed wrong. The courier was supposed to be a Tyrellian trader. Taman's instincts screamed danger, but he held his position. "Taman Han?" the figure asked quietly. "Who wants to know?" Taman responded, his hand moving toward the small weapon hidden at his back. "I'm Minho Seo," the man said, stepping into the dim light. He looked thin and sick with bruises on his face. "Please, you have to help me. They took my ship. They took my family. I've been trying to find someone from Earth for months." Taman's mind worked fast. Minho Seo was a name from the missing colony ships. This man should be dead or lost in space, not standing here on Celestium Prime. Before Taman could respond, he felt it. That sensation of being watched. He turned his head slightly and saw a shadow move in the darkness behind a cargo container. Someone else was here, someone who should not be. The courier never arrived. Taman stood there with a man who should not exist, while unseen eyes watched from the darkness. Everything he had planned was falling apart. His cover might already be broken. But the mission was not complete, and Earth was depending on him. He made a decision. Grabbing Minho's arm, Taman pulled him into the shadows between two cargo containers. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "And tell me everything you know. Start with who took your ship." In the darkness, the Watcher remained hidden and still. The game had changed, but Taman did not know it yet. He only knew that the truth he was hunting was more terrible than he had imagined. And getting that truth back to Earth might cost him everything. The station's artificial night continued around them, full of secrets and lies, and the beginning of something that would shake the entire galaxy. Minho Seo's hands would not stop shaking as he talked. They were hidden in a storage room that Taman had found, surrounded by containers of alien food supplies. The air was cold and smelled like chemicals, but it was safe for now. "They came at night," Minho said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our colony ship was 3 weeks from our destination planet. We thought we were safe in Council-protected space. Then their ships appeared. No warning, no communication. They just disabled our engines with some kind of pulse weapon." Taman listened carefully while his implant recorded everything. Who were they? What species? Kelmorians mostly. But there were others too. Osprey officers giving orders. They boarded our ship and separated everyone into groups. Families were torn apart. My wife and daughter were taken to a different ship than me. Minho's eyes filled with tears. We weren't criminals. We weren't soldiers. We were just families looking for a new home. "Where did they take you?" Taman asked. "A mining facility in the Krell sector. It was deep space, far from any trade routes. The conditions were horrible. We worked 16-hour shifts in tunnels so deep that the gravity made your bones hurt. The ore we mined was radioactive. Most species can't work with it without dying quickly, but humans can survive it longer." Minho looked at his hands, which were scarred and discolored. "That's why they want us. We're tough. We can work where other species can't." Taman felt anger building inside him, but he kept his voice steady. "How did you escape?" "I didn't escape alone. There was a guard, a young Kelmorian who felt guilty about what his people were doing. He helped 5 of us get onto a transport ship. 3 died during the journey because we had to hide in a cargo container with no life support. Only 2 of us made it here." Minho's voice broke. "The other survivor was caught yesterday. I don't know what happened to him. And your family? Still there. Still in those mines, along with thousands of other humans." Minho grabbed Taman's arm desperately. "You have to tell Earth this isn't just about missing ships. This is organized slavery. The Galactic Council knows about it. They're part of it." Taman's mind raced with the implications. He had suspected corruption, maybe even a criminal operation. But if what Minho said was true, this was much bigger. This was a conspiracy involving multiple council species, targeting humanity specifically. He needed more proof. Minho's testimony was valuable, but Earth would need hard evidence that could not be denied or explained away. "I need you to hide here for a few days," Taman told Minho. "I'm going to get evidence that will prove everything you've said. Then we'll find a way to get you and this information back to Earth." Minho nodded, exhaustion showing on his face. Taman left him with some food and water, then made his way back to the upper levels of the station. Over the next 2 days, Taman took bigger risks than ever before. He used his stolen security codes to access restricted areas of the station's data network. He found shipping records that showed a pattern. Human colony ships were being intercepted at specific coordinates. The ships were then listed as lost, while their cargo and passengers were quietly transferred to Kelmorian mining operations. The financial records were even more damning. Payments were being made from the Kelmorian government to accounts belonging to council officials. The amounts were enormous. This wasn't just about free labor. This was about keeping humanity. Weak Taman discovered internal memos discussing containment strategy for Earth. The conspiracy involved 5 different council species who viewed humanity's rapid technological advancement as a threat. Humans had gone from primitive weapons to space travel in just a few centuries. Most species took thousands of years to do the same. The conspirators feared that within a few generations, humanity would become too powerful to control. Their solution was to systematically weaken Earth by stealing colony ships and enslaving the people. It would slow human expansion, reduce Earth's population growth, and keep humanity dependent on the Council for protection from the very pirates who were actually Council agents. Taman felt sick as he read through the documents. This was genocide in slow motion. This was evil hiding behind diplomatic smiles and official procedures. He copied everything onto multiple data chips and prepared to transmit a message to his handler, Harry Kang, back on Earth. But he needed to be careful. Regular communications were monitored. He would have to use a quantum burst transmission, which was expensive and attracted attention, but was the only way to get the information through securely. Before he could make the transmission, a new problem appeared. A human journalist named Somin Lee had arrived on the station 3 days ago. She was investigating rumors of council corruption, and she was asking dangerous questions. Worse, she had somehow learned Taman's name and was trying to arrange a meeting with him. Taman knew this was a disaster waiting to happen. If Somin exposed him publicly before he could complete his mission, everything would be lost. He needed to either control her or stop her. He arranged to meet her in one of the station's public gardens, a place where conversations could be hidden among the noise of water features and alien plants. Somin was younger than he expected, probably in her late 20s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She sat across from him on a bench and smiled. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I've been trying to interview archive workers for my story about document access procedures." "That's not why you wanted to meet me," Taman said quietly. "What do you really want?" Somin's smile faded. She leaned closer and whispered, "I know something is wrong here. I've been following the patterns. Human ships disappearing, council officials suddenly getting wealthy, trade routes that don't make sense, and I think you know something about it." "I'm just an archivist," Taman said carefully. "You're too alert for an archivist. You move like someone with military training, and you've been accessing files that have nothing to do with your job." Somin pulled out a data pad. "I have sources in station security. I know what you've been looking at." Taman considered his options. He could deny everything, but Somin clearly had evidence. He could try to scare her off, but that might make her more determined. Or he could take a huge risk and trust her. "If you keep investigating, you'll die," Taman said bluntly. "The people involved in this don't hesitate to kill. Is your story worth your life?" Somin's face went pale, but her jaw set firmly. "If what I suspect is true, then yes. People deserve to know the truth." Taman made his decision. "Come with me, but if I show you what I've found, you'll be in just as much danger as I am. There's no going back." They returned to Taman's quarters and he showed her everything. The documents, the financial records, Minho's testimony recorded on video. Somin sat in silence as she reviewed it all, her expression growing more horrified with each file. "This is bigger than I imagined," she whispered. "This isn't just corruption. This is a crime against an entire species." "That's why I need to get this information to Earth," Taman said. "Tonight I'm going to make a quantum burst transmission. It will send all of this data directly to my handler. Once Earth has this information, they can decide how to respond." "Let me help," Somin said. "I can create a distraction while you make the transmission. My credentials give me access to communication areas." Taman studied her face and saw genuine courage there, mixed with fear. She knew the risk, but she was willing to take it anyway. He nodded slowly. That night, they put their plan into action. Someone created a fake emergency in one of the communication centers, drawing security attention. While guards rushed to investigate, Taman accessed a secure terminal and began his transmission. The data flowed out in a compressed quantum burst, traveling faster than light toward Earth. In seconds, everything Taman had discovered was racing across the stars to Hierikang. But then alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the station. An automated voice announced in multiple languages, "Security breach detected. All personnel remain at current locations. Station-wide lockdown in effect." Taman's heart sank. They had detected his transmission. Somehow, despite all his precautions, they knew what he had done. He ran from the communication center, but security doors were already closing throughout the station. He barely made it through one before it sealed behind him. His secure identity was probably already compromised. His face would be flagged in every security system. He had gotten the information to Earth, but now he was trapped on a station full of aliens who wanted him dead. And somewhere in the chaos, he had lost contact with Soman. He didn't know if she had escaped or been captured. Taman ran through the corridors, his training taking over as he headed for the lower decks where he might have a chance to hide. Behind him, he could hear the heavy footsteps of security forces beginning their search. The truth was out, racing toward Earth at the speed of light. But Taman might not live long enough to see what humanity would do with it. Taman had been running for 3 hours. His lungs burned and his legs felt like they would give out, but he couldn't stop. Every corridor of Celestium Prime was filled with security forces searching for him. His face was on every screen, labeled as a dangerous spy and terrorist. The lower decks of the station were a maze of forgotten maintenance tunnels and abandoned storage areas. This was where people came when they didn't want to be found. Smugglers, criminals, and others who lived in the shadows made their homes here. It was dark and dangerous, but it was Taman's only chance. He found a narrow space behind some old power generators and finally stopped to catch his breath. His hands were scraped and bleeding from climbing through tight spaces. His uniform was torn and dirty, but he was still alive, and that was what mattered. He pulled out a small communication device from his boot. It was designed for emergencies, with encryption that would take even Council technology hours to break. He sent a brief message to Earth. Mission successful. Data transmitted. Cover broken. Will attempt extraction. Then he destroyed the device, crushing it under his heel. He couldn't risk anyone tracking the signal back to him. A noise made him freeze. Someone was nearby, moving through the darkness. Taman pressed himself against the wall and pulled out his weapon, a small plasma pistol that he'd kept hidden for 8 months. "Don't shoot," a voice said quietly. "I'm here to help." A figure emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, but not human. She had the metallic skin and glowing eyes of a cyborg. Her body was a mix of organic and mechanical parts, making her look both beautiful and frightening at the same time. "Who are you?" Taman demanded, keeping his weapon pointed at her. "My name is Jiho Nam. I work in the tech sector, but I'm also human. Or at least I used to be completely human before an accident required major cybernetic reconstruction." She raised her hands to show she meant no harm. "I've been watching you for weeks. I knew you were different from the other archive workers. And when the alarms went off tonight, I knew you must have found something important." "Why should I trust you?" Taman asked. "Because I lost my family to a Kelmorian raid 8 years ago," Jiho said, her voice tight with old pain. "My parents and younger brother were on a colony ship heading to New Sol. The ship disappeared. The council said it was a navigation error, that they probably jumped into a star. But I never believed that. And tonight, when I hacked into the security feeds to see what the emergency was about, I saw the files you transmitted. I saw the truth about what happened to my family." Taman studied her face, or what was left of her original face beneath the cybernetic enhancements. He saw genuine emotion there and something else, determination. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I want to help you get off this station alive," Jiho said. "And I want to help Earth fight back against these monsters who think they can use us like tools and throw us away when we break." Taman made a decision. He needed allies, and Jiho knew the station systems better than anyone. "All right. But if you're lying to me, if this is a trap, I won't hesitate." "I wouldn't expect you to," Jiho replied. Together they moved deeper into the lower decks. Jiho led him through passages that weren't on any official maps, places where the station's sensors didn't reach. She explained that she had spent years exploring these hidden spaces, partly out of curiosity and partly because she liked having escape routes from her painful memories. They reached a small room that Jiho had turned into a personal workshop. It was filled with computer equipment and technical tools. "This is my private space," she said. "The security systems don't monitor here. We can establish a secure connection to Earth from this location." While Jiho worked on setting up communications, Taemin tried to think of a way off the station. All the docking bays would be watched. Security would search every ship trying to leave. They would need help from Earth, an extraction team that could get them out. "I'm getting a signal," Jiho said suddenly. "Someone from Earth is trying to reach this location. Your people must be tracking emergency protocols." The screen flickered to life and Hyeri Kang's face appeared. She looked tired and worried, but her voice was steady. "Taemin, thank God you're alive. We received your data. It's exactly what we needed. The evidence is irrefutable. What's Earth's response?" Taemin asked. Hyeri's expression darkened. "That's complicated. The government is divided. Some want immediate military action, but we're outnumbered and outgunned. Others want to try diplomatic pressure, but that seems pointless now that we know how deep the corruption goes. And some are suggesting we simply pull back, close our borders, and protect what we have. What about the people in those mines?" Taemin demanded. "What about the thousands of humans being worked to death?" "We haven't forgotten them," Hyeri said firmly. "That's why we're sending an extraction team for you. But it's going to take time. The nearest Earth military ship is 3 days away from your position." "I don't have 3 days," Taemin said. "Security is everywhere. They're going to find me long before that." "Then you need to stay hidden and stay alive," Hyeri replied. "We're also preparing something else. We're going to broadcast your evidence to every species in the galaxy, not just the Council, but everyone. All the minor species, the independent worlds, everyone who the Council has dismissed or exploited. We're going to expose this conspiracy to the entire galaxy and let political pressure do what military force can't." It was a bold plan, and it might work, but it would also make everyone involved in the conspiracy desperate. Desperate people did dangerous things. The communication ended and Taemin sat down heavily on a crate. 3 days seemed like an eternity when every alien on the station was hunting for him. "I might be able to help with that," Jiho said. She was typing rapidly on her computers, her mechanical fingers moving faster than human hands could. "I'm good at hacking security systems. I can create false sightings of you in different parts of the station. It will confuse them, make them spread their search out." "That might buy us some time," Taemin agreed. Over the next day, they played a dangerous game with station security. Jiho would plant fake sensor readings showing Taemin in one area, and security forces would rush there while he was safely hidden elsewhere. But they couldn't keep it up forever. The security chief, an osprey named Commander Krill, was smart. He would eventually figure out the pattern. On the second day, things got worse. Jiho intercepted a communication that made Taemin's blood run cold. Salmon Lee had been captured. She was being questioned by Council Prime Vexthor himself, the Vrithan leader who chaired the security committee and was one of the main conspirators. "They're trying to make her cooperate," Jiho said, reading the intercepted messages. "They've offered her a deal. If she testifies that you forced her to help you, that you threatened her life, they'll let her go free. If she refuses, they'll charge her as your accomplice." Taemin felt guilt wash over him. He had brought Salmon into this. Now she was suffering because of choices he had made. "We have to help her," he said. "How? We can barely keep ourselves hidden, let alone stage a rescue," Jiho pointed out. But Taemin couldn't just abandon Soman. He was thinking about possible plans when alarms suddenly blared in the lower decks. Security forces were coming more than before. Somehow they had found the general area where Taemin was hiding. "We need to move now," Jiho said urgently. They ran through the maintenance tunnels, but security forces were everywhere. The net was closing in. Taemin could hear shouts in multiple alien languages, the sound of weapons being charged, and the heavy footsteps of soldiers getting closer. They reached a cargo bay, but it was a dead end. The only exits were blocked by security forces pouring in from multiple directions. Taemin and Jiho pressed their backs against a cargo container, weapons drawn, preparing for what looked like their last stand. "I'm sorry I got you into this," Taemin said to Jiho. "Don't be," she replied. "I've been waiting 8 years for a chance to fight back. If I die doing it, that's better than living as a coward." The security forces surrounded them, weapons aimed. Commander Krill stepped forward, his feathered crest raised in triumph. "It's over, human. Surrender and we might let you live long enough for a trial." Taman raised his weapon. He wouldn't go quietly. But before anyone could fire, a massive explosion tore through the cargo bay doors. Metal screamed and twisted as something crashed through from the outside. It was a shuttle, scarred and smoking, flying in a way that seemed almost suicidal. It slammed into the security forces, scattering them like toys. The side door opened and a figure leaned out, firing a weapon at the remaining guards. "Get in," the figure shouted in Korean. Taman couldn't believe what he was seeing. The pilot, the person who had just saved their lives, was someone he thought was dead, someone who had been missing for 6 months. It was Doyen Park, his fellow operative from Earth. The man who had been captured on his own mission and presumed killed. "Move." Doyen shouted again as more security forces arrived. Taman grabbed Jiho's arm and they ran for the shuttle. Plasma bolts flew past them, hitting cargo containers and walls. They dove through the shuttle door just as Doyen pulled it back into the air, engines screaming with the strain. The shuttle lurched and spun as Doyen maneuvered through the cargo bay, barely avoiding the weapons fire. The shuttle shook violently as weapons fire from Celestium Prime chased them through space. Doyen's hands moved across the controls with desperate speed, dodging between chunks of debris and using them as cover. "Hold on to something," he shouted. Taman and Jiho grabbed onto support rails as the shuttle spun and dove, engines screaming. Through the viewport, Taman could see the massive defense turrets on the station tracking their movement. Preparing to fire again. "We're not going to make it," Jiho said, her mechanical eye analyzing their trajectory. "They're going to cut us off before we can reach a safe jump distance." "I know," Doyen said through gritted teeth. "That's why I brought friends." 3 more ships appeared from behind a large piece of space debris. They weren't military vessels, but modified cargo ships, and they opened fire on the station's turrets. It wasn't much, but it was enough distraction for Doyen to push the shuttle's engines to maximum and race toward open space. Minutes later, they were far enough from the station to activate the jump drive. Reality twisted around them, and suddenly they were light years away, floating in the darkness between stars. Everyone sat in silence for a moment, just breathing and trying to process what had happened. Then Taman turned to Doyen. "You're supposed to be dead," he said. Doyen gave a tired laugh. "Yeah, well, reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. When my cover was broken 6 months ago, I was captured by Kelmorian agents. But instead of killing me, they sent me to one of their mining facilities. I think they wanted to make an example out of me, show what happens to human spies." "How did you escape?" Jiho asked. "I didn't escape alone. There were about 40 other humans in that facility, including colonists from 3 different ships. We organized, planned, and waited for our chance. 3 weeks ago, during a shift change, we overpowered the guards and stole 2 transport ships. Most of the others headed straight for Earth, but I came here because I knew Taman was still operating on the station." Doyen moved to a storage compartment and opened it. Inside were 3 people, thin and scared but alive. "This is Minho Seo, his wife Eunji, and their daughter Nari. I found them at the mining facility. Minho told me he had already made contact with you." Taman recognized Minho immediately. The man looked healthier now, and the relief on his face at seeing his family safe was overwhelming. His wife held their daughter tightly, both of them crying tears of joy. "There are thousands more like them," Doyen continued, his voice hard. "Thousands of humans working in conditions that would kill most other species within weeks. The conspiracy is even bigger than you discovered, Taman. It's not just about keeping humanity weak. Some of the Council species are also selling human workers to private corporations across the galaxy. We're being traded like commodities." "How many facilities?" Taman asked. "At least 12 that I know of, probably more. The Kelmorians run most of them, but Osprey corporations own several too. And all of it is being coordinated through the Galactic Council itself." Doyen pulled out a data device. "I've been gathering evidence for months. Names, locations, financial records, video documentation of the conditions. Everything you need to prove this goes beyond just a few corrupt officials." Jiho took the device and plugged it into the shuttle's computer system. As she reviewed the files, her expression grew darker. "This is damning. Combined with what Taman already transmitted to Earth, this proves a systematic genocide." A communication signal interrupted them. It was Hieri Kang from Earth. Her face appeared on the screen, and behind her, Taman could see what looked like a military command center. "Taman, Doyen, thank God you're both alive. she said. "We've been monitoring the situation. Your extraction went better than expected." "What's happening on Earth?" Timon asked. Harry's expression became serious. "Everything has changed in the last 48 hours. When we received your evidence, we immediately began preparing our response. But before we could decide on a course of action, the Kelmorians made their move. 3 hours ago, they launched a preemptive strike against our outer colonies." Timon felt his heart sink. "How bad?" "Bad. They hit mining stations in the asteroid belt and 2 agricultural colonies on the frontier. Hundreds dead, thousands missing. They're trying to destroy evidence and eliminate witnesses before we can rescue them. They know we've exposed their conspiracy and they're going all in." "What's our response?" Doyen demanded. "Military mobilization. Admiral Sun Woo Jin is gathering every ship we have. We're going to fight back." Harry looked directly at them. "But we need more than military action. We need political support. That's why Chancellor Wu Jinbei has approved the release of all evidence to the entire galaxy. In 2 hours, every species, every independent world, every news network across known space will receive the complete documentation of what the Council has done. That's going to cause chaos," Jiho said. "That's the point," Harry replied. "We can't win a military conflict against the Council species. But if we can turn the galaxy against them, if we can show everyone that the Council has become corrupt and dangerous, we might be able to break their power structure." A new voice joined the communication. It was of Vrathan, speaking in heavily accented but understandable human language. "My name is Counselor Thurin. I am currently in hiding because my own species wants me dead for what I am about to do." The screen split, showing both Hyeri and the alien counselor. Thurin looked different from other Vrithans Timon had seen. Her 6 arms were trembling and her compound eyes showed what might have been fear. "I have been part of the Galactic Council for 20 years, Thurin continued. "I believed we were building something good, something that would bring peace and prosperity to all species. But I was wrong. I didn't know about the slavery conspiracy until recently. When I discovered what my own government was involved in, I tried to speak up. They threatened my family. They told me to stay quiet or I would disappear like others who had questioned the Council's actions." "Why are you helping us now?" Timon asked. "Because what is being done to humanity is evil. And because if we allow this evil to continue, it will spread. Today it is humans being enslaved. Tomorrow it might be my species or any other. The Council has become the very thing it was created to prevent, a tyrannical power that crushes those weaker than itself." Thrin pulled out data files. "I have been gathering evidence from inside the Council chambers for 3 months. Internal communications, voting records, secret agreements. I know which officials are involved, which corporations are profiting, and which military leaders are enforcing the conspiracy. I am giving all of this to Earth and I will testify to the truth regardless of the cost. They'll kill you," Jiho said quietly. "Perhaps, but some things are worth dying for. Truth is one of them." The communication continued with planning for the next phase. Earth was preparing a coordinated release of information. Timon and Doyen's evidence, combined with Thren's insider knowledge, would be broadcast across the galaxy simultaneously. Every species would see the proof of what had been done, but that still left the immediate military crisis. Kelmorian forces were attacking human colonies right now. People were dying while they talked about political strategy. "I want to go to the front lines," Timon said suddenly. "I want to be part of the fight." "Your mission isn't over yet," Harry told him. "We need you for one more operation. The Kelmorian command ship coordinates all their military actions against human targets. We believe their operational database contains detailed records of every facility where humans are being held, every ship involved in the raids, every official who authorized the attacks. If we can capture that database, we can prove everything and locate every missing human." "You want us to board an enemy command ship during a battle?" Doyen asked incredulously. "The Earth ship Indomitable is heading to intercept the Kelmorian fleet at Titan's Gate. That's where the battle will happen. If you can get onto that command ship during the chaos, if you can extract their database, it will give us everything we need to end this once and for all." It was a suicide mission and everyone knew it. But they also knew it might be the only chance to save the thousands of humans still trapped in slavery. "I'll do it," Timon said. "We'll all do it," Doyen added. Jiho nodded in agreement. "Good. A stealth insertion pod will meet you at these coordinates in 3 hours. It will get you close to the battle zone." Yeri paused and her expression softened. Come home safe. All of you? The communication ended and the small group prepared for what would come next. They checked weapons, reviewed ship schematics, and made peace with the possibility that they might not survive. Minho approached Taemin quietly. Thank you, he said, for everything you've done, for risking your life to expose the truth. Thank the people who will fight the battle, Taemin replied. We just gathered information. They're the ones who will pay the real price. As their shuttle moved toward the rendezvous point, the galaxy was about to change forever. In secret chambers and public forums across hundreds of worlds, beings were receiving the evidence of the conspiracy. Reactions ranged from shock to anger to disbelief, but the truth could not be denied. The Galactic Council, for centuries the supreme authority in known space, was about to face its greatest crisis. And humanity, the youngest and supposedly weakest species. The Battle of Titan's Gate would be remembered for centuries. It was where everything changed, where humanity proved they were more than just victims waiting to be saved. Taemin watched through the viewport of the stealth insertion pod as the battle unfolded. The space around Saturn's moon Titan was filled with ships, explosions, and the deadly dance of military combat. Earth's fleet, smaller and less advanced than the Kelmorian forces, fought with a fury that seemed to surprise their enemies. Admiral Sun Woo Jin commanded the Earth forces from the battleship Indomitable. Her tactical decisions were aggressive and unconventional. She used the moon's gravity to slingshot smaller ships into attack positions. She sacrificed damaged vessels by turning them into kinetic missiles. She showed the Kelmorians that humans might be outgunned, but they would never surrender. Target locked, Doyen said from the pilot seat. The Kelmorian command ship is in the center of their formation. Getting in there is going to be nearly impossible. We've done impossible things before, Jiho replied, her cybernetic hands working the pod systems. I'm going to mask our signature to look like debris. It might buy us enough time to get close. The pod moved through the battle zone, tumbling and spinning like a piece of destroyed ship. Weapons fire blazed around them, close enough that Taemin could feel the heat through the hull. But the disguise worked. They drifted closer to the command ship without being targeted. Through the chaos, Taemin saw something that filled him with pride and horror at the same time. Human pilots were flying damaged ships directly into enemy vessels, sacrificing themselves to take out larger targets. Marines in spacesuits were boarding enemy ships through hull breaches, fighting with whatever weapons they could find. Colonists from the nearby stations had armed themselves with mining equipment and were defending their homes with desperate courage. This was humanity at its most dangerous. Not because of superior technology or greater numbers, but because humans refused to accept defeat. They would fight until their last breath, and they would make their enemies pay for every inch of ground. We're approaching the docking area, Doyen announced. Jiho, can you hack their airlock? Already on it. Jiho's mechanical eye glowed as she interfaced with the enemy ship's systems. Their security is good, but not good enough. Give me 30 seconds. Those 30 seconds felt like hours. The pod was exposed now, visible to any sensor that might be watching, but the battle provided cover. The Kelmorians were too focused on the Earth fleet to notice one small pod attaching to their command ship. The airlock opened, and they moved quickly into the enemy vessel. The interior was designed for beings larger than humans, with high ceilings and wide corridors. Everything was painted in dark colors with alien symbols marking different sections. They encountered their first guards within minutes. 4 Kelmorian soldiers, each twice the size of a human and armed with plasma rifles. But Taemin and his team had the element of surprise. They moved with trained precision, taking down the guards before alarms could be raised. Command center should be 3 levels up, Jiho said, checking the ship's layout on her internal display. But security will be heavy. We'll need to fight our way through. They moved through the ship and the fighting was intense. Kelmorian crew members were not prepared for intruders during a battle. The humans used that to their advantage, striking fast and disappearing into maintenance tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. But they couldn't stay hidden forever. As they approached the command center, alarms finally sounded. Heavy doors sealed throughout the ship. Defense systems activated. The Kelmorians now knew they had been boarded. We need to move faster, Taemin said, running through a corridor as weapons fire chased them. They reached the command center doors and found them heavily defended. A dozen armed guards stood between them and their objective. Taman looked at Doyen and Jiho and they all understood. This was where they would make their stand. The fight was brutal. Jiho used her cybernetic strength to throw guards aside while her combat protocols made her movements impossibly fast. Doyen fought with the rage of someone who had spent 6 months as a slave, every strike meant to punish and hurt. Taman moved between them, covering their backs and taking down enemies with precise shots. They were winning, but barely. Taman took a plasma bolt to his shoulder, and the pain was overwhelming. Doyen was bleeding from multiple wounds. Even Jiho's mechanical parts were showing damage from the fighting. Then Jiho made a decision. She turned to Taman and pressed a data chip into his hand. Take this. It has everything we need to access their systems. Get that database and get out of here. What are you doing? Taman demanded. Buying you time. Jiho smiled, and for a moment she looked completely human despite all the mechanical parts. My body is mostly cybernetic. I can hold them off longer than you. Go. Make my family's deaths mean something. Before Taman could argue, Jiho charged back into the corridor, drawing the guards away from the command center entrance. Her weapons blazed and her battle cry echoed through the ship. Taman and Doyen used the opening she created. They blasted through the command center doors and found themselves facing the ship's officers. These were not soldiers but commanders and analysts, less prepared for direct combat. The fight was short. Within minutes, Taman was at the main computer terminal, plugging in Jiho's data chip. His hands moved across the alien interface, his neural implant translating and understanding the systems. Got it, he said, downloading their entire operational database, everything. Every facility, every raid, every official involved. This is bigger than we thought. The conspiracy involves 12 council species, not just 5. How long? Doyen asked, guarding the door as more enemies approached. 2 minutes. Those 2 minutes lasted forever. Doyen held the doorway, firing at anything that moved in the corridor beyond. His weapon overheated, and he switched to a Kelmorian rifle he had picked up. Still, the enemies came. Outside the ship, the battle raged on. Earth forces were losing ground. Too many ships destroyed, too many lives lost. But they kept fighting, kept pushing, because that was what humans did. Then something changed. A new voice came over all communication channels, broadcast on every frequency across the entire battle zone. It was Counselor Thren. Warriors of the Kelmorian fleet, she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. I am Counselor Thren of the Vrithan delegation. What you are doing here is not military action. It is genocide. It is slavery, it is evil, and it ends now. She broadcast evidence directly to every ship in the Kelmorian fleet. The soldiers and officers saw the truth about what their government had done. They saw the slave facilities, the suffering humans, the conspiracy that had used them as tools for evil. I am ordering all Vrithan forces to stand down, Thren continued, and I call upon every Kelmorian with honor to refuse these illegal orders. History will judge what we do today. Choose wisely. 3 Vrithan cruisers that had been supporting the Kelmorian attack suddenly withdrew from the battle. Then 2 Kelmorian destroyers stopped firing. Then more ships began to break formation, their crews refusing to continue fighting a war built on lies. The Kelmorian command ship shuddered as its own crew began to mutiny. Officers argued with each other. Some wanted to continue fighting, others wanted to surrender. Download complete, Taman said. He pulled the data chip with the complete database and put it in a secure pocket. Let's get out of here. They fought their way back through the ship, but it was easier now. The enemy was divided, confused. Some tried to stop them, others let them pass. The ship was tearing itself apart from within. They found the insertion pod and launched just as the command ship's engines began to fail. Behind them, the great vessel started to drift, powerless and defeated not by weapons but by the truth. The battle ended not with a grand explosion, but with a slow realization. The Kelmorian fleet, seeing their command ship fall and understanding the conspiracy they had served, began to surrender. Ship after ship lowered their weapons and requested ceasefire. Taman, Doyen, and 3 other surviving human soldiers from the boarding team were picked up by a Earth rescue shuttle. As they were brought back to the Indomitable, Taman looked out at the battlefield. So many ships destroyed, so many lives lost, but humanity had won. The data from the Kelmorian database was transmitted to every government, news organization, and independent group in the galaxy. The evidence was complete and undeniable. The conspiracy was exposed down to its smallest detail. Over the next weeks, the galaxy changed. The Galactic Council collapsed as species after species withdrew. 20 minor species that had suffered similar exploitation joined together to demand justice. Protests erupted on council member worlds as populations learned what their governments had done. The Kelmorian government fell within days. The Osprey corporations involved were dismantled. Freethan leaders who had participated were arrested by their own people. Council Prime Vexthor tried to flee but was captured and brought to trial. Most importantly, the humans in the slave facilities were freed. Ships from a dozen species worked together to rescue them, providing medical care and transport home. The galaxy had seen what happened when evil was allowed to flourish, and they chose to do better.